Okay, so for this next session, we have a great series of speakers here who are going to be covering more of the national perspective, if I can put it that way. So some are joining us online and some are joining us here in person. So I suggest we start, first of all, with the perspective from Belgium. And we have Henri MARENNE here with us today. He is the president of Sans Terre Water, which is a Belgian-based organization. Henri, please.
Thank you. I don't know if... okay, I have the slides. Wow, that's a good point. So I've been asked to present you the electricity situation in Belgium. And I'm very thankful to Claude for giving me this possibility, this opportunity. But I must admit, I immediately asked myself, is there nobody else that could present the electricity situation in Belgium? First slide, please. And amongst them, we have a lot of clever guys, clever people that know better than I do the electrical situation in Belgium. For instance, the person in the middle of this picture, our Prime Minister, Mr. De Croo. He knows a lot of things about energy, about the Belgian situation. Having said that, okay, it's clearly somebody who is anti-nuclear, and for him, all power plants or nuclear plants are full of cracks. That's the expression he used, schuurtjes centraals. So, okay, it's maybe not the best person to speak about nuclear in Belgium. So, maybe the second person is a person on the left of this slide, our Minister of Energy, Mrs. Tin van der Straten. Okay, the problem is that she's allergic to the word nuclear. She can't speak it out, so in fact it would have been a torture to bring her here and let her speak about it. It's true, eh? You can look at reportage, that's true what I say. Okay, there is only one official person left on this photograph. The clever guy you see on the right side of this picture is the CEO of Ilia, which is the transporter of electricity in Belgium. The problem with this guy, of course, is that you give him data, a couple of data, and the minister say, I want this result, and he produced the result the minister wants. Okay, so that's not also the best person to speak about objectively about nuclear in Belgium. Next slide, please. So the only solution, in fact, I agree that the best solution is to ask a common citizen, and that's me, Henri MARENNE. I present myself. I am the chairman of the citizen association, which is called 100 terawatt hours. Because why 100 terawatt hours? Because it's nearly the electricity need we have in Belgium. That's an easy a picture. It is very recognizable. And in fact, our organization specialized in giving information about nuclear situation in Belgium, and especially in our energy mix. And in fact, our opinion are the same as nowadays the majority of the Belgian population. You see the last opinion poll, which is from September 2022. You see 24% of Belgian population is pro-nuclear, certainly in the current situation. Please, next slide. But let's have a look at our energy history in Belgium. And in fact, in 1973, in the middle of oil crisis, we had only fossil fuels. And at that moment, to solve the problem of supply already there, we decided to invest in nuclear. So around the year 2000, we had about 50% of our electricity that was produced by nuclear, and the rest was still fossil fuels. And then came the Plan 2020 from the EU, asking us to produce 20% of our energy with renewable sources. And that's what we have done during 20 years, because in Belgium we are happy to be the first in class, especially our political leaders, because then they get a nice position in the European Commission. So that's it helps to be the first in class. Anyway, we developed the green energy production, which represent now around 20% of production, and we kept our nuclear, and the rest is still fossil, essentially gas. And in this evolution, we made it better than other countries, because we replaced clearly coal-generating power plants by gas, or by renewable first, and the rest was gas. So in fact, that's the reason why, if you look at electricitymap.org, the site that everybody knows here in the room, you see that Belgium is one of the best of the country with the lowest emission in carbon. Okay, the big question for us is 2025. Because there, the government in 2003 decided to avoid production of electricity by nuclear. And that's absolutely impossible, of course. Next slide, please. If you look at this table, you understand why it is not possible. We have nowadays 6 gigawatts of power production, nuclear power production, producing 47 terawatt hours, which represent nearly 50%. And we have beneath the table the gas plants, which represent around 5 gigawatt of dispatchable power source also. And the rest is electricity coming from renewable, windmills, solar panels, other renewables, but we cannot count on them for supply, security of supply. So we can't suppress nuclear energy. Next slide, please. But then the clever guy I presented you on the first slide came and made a lot of calculation about the situation if in 2025 Belgium was phasing out nuclear. And he came to the conclusion, he started with average consumption during stress period, what he called scarcity level. And then with a lot of tricks, a couple of tricks with ups and downs, he demonstrated at the end of the curve that he could replace 6,000 megawatts of nuclear plants by two gas plants of 800 megawatts. So very interesting, but we were astonished. We as a population, we couldn't believe. But it worked, and the government was very happy to announce at the end of last year, nearly 1 year ago, okay, we can do it without nuclear. You see, it is demonstrated here. I don't see what's there on these figures, but for them it was sufficient. And our fake Minister of Energy could proudly announce that we would never have any problem of supply in electricity, and our prices will kept on the lowest level. We see what the situation is today. Okay, for us, the citizens and also guys, other people were thinking clearly about that. We couldn't believe that. So next slide, please. So we took the same data as our clever guy, and we made the calculation with our. So the data are the same, but we did it with our own hypothesis. which were a little bit less optimistic than the minister and Elia, his counselor. And we came just to the opposite result. In fact, demonstrating that we need 6,000, more than 6,000 megawatt of electricity if we lose nuclear. So in fact, we have to keep nuclear. But nuclear, as you see below, it represents only around 4,000 gigawatt because of the capacity factor. They count that it's not always used, so only 80% of this electricity is really usable. But at the end, we came even to the conclusion that we need even to build 1,800 megawatt of new nuclear plant to assure our future. And but the same as during the first announcement of the government, nobody listened to us. And so we had all the proofs. We have contacted the media. We have contacted the political parties. Nobody was there to answer us. So we were obliged to go to the court and to sue the government for non-respecting our electricity needs, which I recall you said that it's a human right that we must ensure. And nowadays, with the situation and the future of Belgium, we are not happy with the situation. We have absolutely to go to the court, and we are now busy with this action. I had also to mention that, okay, there are some green lights in the future of Belgium, because we have Mira, which is a 4th-generation reactor which is developed in Mol, or one of our federal research center. And we have also received kind of chewing gum of 100 million euro to develop SMR technology. So with that, the government was very happy to close nuclear and, okay, give a compensation. Okay, that's it. That's in a nutshell what you have to know about Belgium and its energy system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henri, for a very entertaining overview of what is actually quite a serious situation in Belgium, and one which those of us who live here are keeping a very close eye on and wondering what 2025 is going to bring. What I suggest we do is we have the 4 speakers first, and then I will turn to you for any questions that you may have. So please start writing down your questions so that you're ready when I open it to the rest of the floor. But can I suggest maybe then, in the hope that our next speaker is connected, and I see Claude nodding at me, so I would like to introduce our next speaker, who's Zbigniew KUBACKI. He's the Councillor, Nuclear Energy Department at the Ministry of Climate and Environment in Poland. So he's going to now give us a Polish vision. Mr. KUBACKI, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Claude, for giving me that opportunity to speak. It is my great pleasure to be part of this conference, which I taking part for a couple of times, and participate in the panel organized by Les Traités Européens. And I am honored to share my floor with so many distinguished speakers from the IEA, EU Commission, European Nuclear Institution, NGOs, and first of all, my former boss, Minister Michał Kurtyka. So this year edition of the conference takes place in a very, very dramatic times of escalating energy crisis with growing rapidly tariffs, and the incoming difficult winter for many countries and households, probably not first one after the Second World War. We should adjust our policy to these challenging conditions and to find solution for energy policy which will try to get rid of fossil fuels, especially from Russia, and to build energy mix based on clean, low, and zero emission source. Nuclear power seems to be part of that solution for both security context and climate mitigation policy. Having said that, I would like to say a few words about the Polish nuclear power program and its implementation, and I will telling this in this above mentioned context. Despite this very dramatic change, the energy situation and energy market, the rationale for nuclear power in Poland has not changed since the Polish nuclear power has been approved in 2014. The three pillars, energy security, protection of environment and climate, and economic benefits are the same as we started with the program. The current global situation has been significantly affecting many aspects of energy policy of Poland and underline the need to speed up the approach to ensuring energy security towards a greater diversification and independence. For us, nuclear power is the answer, as it is able to address Poland's needs related to mitigation of the risk associated with this current situation and political crisis. Nuclear power will allow Poland to achieve the clean energy system by 2050, and we must deploy by that time all available technologies, nuclear, solar, wind, and hydrogen. In our country, there is a strong need for large amount of reliable nuclear capacity because we want to replace fossil fuel power plants, mainly coal, which still constituted 70% of the Polish energy mix, and these plants will be closed to meet climate neutrality objective by 2050. But the fast deployment of renewable energy sources and implementation of energy efficiency measures has to be accompanied by development of zero low emission baseload to ensure security of supply. Nuclear energy allows storing nuclear fuel for a very long time that improves the energy independence of the state. It contributes to reducing the demand for natural gas in electric power sector, minimizing the sensitivity of the electricity prices to gas price fluctuation. According to many internal Polish studies, but also international, nuclear units are the cheapest source of energy, taking into account the full range of costs associated with production of electricity, especially the system cost. So what are details of the Polish nuclear power in this global context? Polish nuclear power strategy is based the entire program on one selected reactor technology. We expected from this selected technology supplier a comprehensive offer compromising technology, financing, and taking up joint responsibility for the entire project. It involves investing up to 49% equity in the project company and sharing the risk of the entire investment process. The three technology suppliers, Westinghouse from the United States, EDF from France, and KHNP from South Korea, expressed strong interest in participating in the Polish nuclear power program. EDF submitted a proposal in October 2021, KHP in April 2022, and Westinghouse in September 2020 this year. All three proposals are currently reviewed by Polish side. This decision of the technology selection will be made by the Council of Ministers in the coming weeks, so relatively shortly. We would like to pick up the strategic partner, which based on the above mentioned criteria, and we pick up someone who will submit the best offer, and all three vendors are competing for our Polish project. Additional assumption for us is that vendor partner will take into account significant role of and share of the Polish industry in the project. The construction of nuclear power plant can be carried out, according to our evaluation, by up to 70% of the project value. It is estimated that by 2040, it will generate around 38,000 of new highly qualified jobs, and will set up a new sector of the economy. The last elements which has happened recently regarding the Polish nuclear program is following. The project company, which will be responsible for the execution of the plan, has been acquired by the State Treasury in April 2021. December last year, this project company indicated the preferred site where the first Polish nuclear power plant is going to be built, and they submitted the report to the Polish regulator. And recently, the regulator, the Polish Environmental Agency, started the transboundary consultation process regarding that site. The Polish government also prepared the necessary legal changes. The new legal framework will facilitate licensing process for nuclear power plants, in particularly enabling addressing parallel multiple levels of regulatory approvals. The new bill has been approved by the Council of Ministers, submitted to the Parliament in September this year, and the draft is currently awaiting notification from the European Commission. Ministry, we are expecting to have the bill by the end of this year. Few words about the public acceptance. The public acceptance in Poland is extremely high. I would say, that according to our survey, 74% of Poles believe that the implementation of the Polish nuclear power is the very right idea. In municipalities, in the region where the potential sites for the first nuclear power are located, social support is again very high, 63%. We are fully aware of the fact that we still have to do the good communication with the public to keep this high level of support. The next 2 years for us will be very crucial because we will have to select the technology, which I said a minute ago. We have to obtain decision and environmental condition and location decision from the Polish regulators. And then we have to, in 2 years' time, sign a contract with vendor for technology supply and EPC contract. Obtaining this construction permits we expected from the Polish regulator in the year 2026, and Mr. Kurtyka already said that the first nuclear power plant could be commissioned in Poland in 2033. And then every 2 years from the 2033, there will be new units added to the grid. So we will conclude the program in the year 2043, as has been set up by the government. So my closing remark. In my closing remark, I would like to again say that the conference is organized at the very right time in the midst of the global political and energy crisis caused by the Russian aggression on Ukraine. All circumstances underline the growing role and place for nuclear power in clean energy mix. For a country like Poland, which still depending, as I said, on fossil fuel, mainly coal, nuclear power is necessary and very important tool in all aspects of the energy policy. In this respect, we count very much on European cooperation, especially with the European Commission and European partners. And then we hope that it will be allowed us for successful implementation of our nuclear project. Thank you very much for the attention.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. KUBACKI, for that very interesting intervention. Indeed, a lot of the issues that you highlight, they're similar for Poland as they are for other European countries. What I found very interesting is that regardless of whether you decide to go for US, a European, or a South Korean technology, you're going to have that local supply chain component, which is also, I think, very important, because that's one way of making sure that the Polish population also benefit from these projects in terms of creating jobs and in terms of providing some economic contribution from the GDP perspective. So I think that's also a very interesting element that you've included in the process. Maybe if I turn next to our next speaker, who I understand is also online, and again also I hope he is connected. I'm looking to Claude. He's connected as well. So our next speaker is Mr. Attila AZODI. He's the former government commissioner of PACS-2 and a professor at the BME Institute of Nuclear Technology. And he is here speaking on behalf of Hungary.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Claude is asking me to show you the clock that we have here on the table. Apparently this relates to you. I wasn't quite sure how, but it relates to you.
Very good, very good. Yeah, we had a few years ago.
Alors, Attila.
Attila, do you remember? It was back in 2010 in Budapest. This is when I met you, Attila. And Attila told me, well, everyone is going to speak for too long. And he brought an alarm clock. And he came with his alarm clock. And the alarm clock was ringing every 8 minutes. Let me tell you that the first people to speak were terrorized by the alarm clock. They never respected their speaking time, and the others did. And the last speakers ended their presentation even before the alarm clock started ringing. So that is why I brought this alarm clock. This is a fond memory of you, Attila.
Much. I could not really understand, but yeah, we had a few years ago a big conference in Budapest, and that time I had a big clock just to control the time used by the presenters. So thank you very much for reminding me for that, and I will try to keep my time frame as well today. I would like to report you about a recent study what we made with a few students here at the Technical University Budapest, which was published in the Energy Conversion and Management X journal. You can find this paper under this this reference if you are interested. And the question in this study was whether the European countries can really meet the climate protection objectives and the security of supply requirements set by the current situation. I have to mention that it was made last year, so we did not have any information about the war, so no effect of the crisis what we have right now was taken into consideration. But we analyzed the countries marked in this map around Hungary. You see here in Central Europe, Hungary, and beside Hungary, 18 additional countries, which are with gray, dark gray, shown in this map, including France, Germany, Spain, and the other countries. And the question was, if we model the electricity consumption set by the national energy and climate plans of the individual countries, and we analyze the assumed situation in 2030 and 40. So if the countries could meet really the objectives with the power plant portfolio foreseen by the governments of the individual countries. For this analysis, we took into consideration once again the national energy and climate plans of the 19 countries. These documents are official governmental documents in the countries. And we analyzed also the real hourly electricity consumption data available at the ENTSO-E and data regarding the weather-dependent renewable sources of the individual countries. So based on the plans of the countries, we found that in 2019, altogether, more than 800,000 megawatt installed capacities was present in the electricity grid of the 19 countries. And they plan to have more than 1,100,000 megawatts installed capacities in 2030 and more than 1,400,000 megawatt installed capacities in 2040. How the individual energy sources will play a role in this energy mix, you can see by the colors in the pie charts and also in this figure, where you see that the 19 countries under study plan mainly solar and wind power plant capacities to be increased in the system. They plan few new hydropower plants. Most of the countries keep or decrease the nuclear installed capacities. They foresee some stagnating power of gas-fired power plants and a dramatic decrease in the coal-fired power plants. So these data are once again based on the official governmental energy plans of the 19 countries. Regarding the electricity consumption, most of the countries plan or assume large increase in the annual electricity needs. So for example, if you look at this chart, you see that in Austria, the government assumes that in 2030, 30% more electricity will be needed compared to 2019, and in 2040, more than 45% more electricity will be consumed in the country. So you see the other countries, I don't want to list all, but you see that most of the countries plan large increase in the electricity needs by 2030 and 2040. We analyzed how the weather-dependent electricity generation sources are available and how they will be available in 2030 and 40. Here are these so-called heat maps, which show all the 8,760 hours of a year from the year 2019. This figure is for Austria, where you see that definitely solar power is available only during the daytime, and there is no solar feed-in during the nighttime. It is evident. And you see how big differences are between January and July or August, so the summer and the winter periods. It is important to model those energy sources in the early resolution simulations because most of the energy and climate plans calculate with yearly energy balances, and they neglect the effect of the different availability of those weather-dependent sources. And definitely in the different countries, the situation is totally different. So if you compare, for example, here, Austria, Czech Republic, France, Germany, Hungary, and Spain, you see remarkable differences. It is also evident in Spain, much more sunshine is available, and therefore the load factors for solar are very different in the different countries. We made the same analysis. So once again, this is based on real data from 2019, and we made the same analysis regarding the wind power. You see the same countries, Austria, Czech Republic, France, Germany, Hungary, and Spain, for the real data in year 2019 for wind availability. And here the figure is totally different compared to solar because we see the most of the feeding from wind in winter and spring, and during the summer, the feeding from wind in all the countries analyzed are much smaller than in winter and springtime. So we took into consideration the real hourly data from 2019 and made simulations for 2030 and 40, taking into consideration the power plant portfolios, what the governments included into their official national energy and climate plans. What we got from the hourly resolution simulations, so first of all, in 2019, the countries which are colored with red were dependent very much on imports. So in those countries which are highlighted with red, they had more than 10% of the electricity imported from other countries. And if we make the calculations, as I described before, we see that some countries will be not able to supply themselves in 2040. So for example, Hungary, Serbia, Belgium, Austria, Portugal, they don't have enough capacities in 2040 to supply themselves with electricity. If we compare the hourly resolution calculational data, we sum up those results, we see that during the nights, many of the countries could not supply themselves with electricity. On the other hand, because of the large share of solar power during the daytimes in spring and summer, there are a large overproduction of solar-based electricity. And in 2040, if we assume unlimited cross-border capacities for solar and wind power, even in that case, in the nights, there are unserved demand from solar and wind. So it means that in many countries, most of the nighttime hours cannot be covered by the capacities available in 2040. On the other hand, during the daytime, low carbon energy sources other than solar and wind, hydro, nuclear, geothermal, biomass, and waste, has to be curtailed because of the overproduction of solar and wind, which would make the business case for the traditional low carbon energy sources very complicated in 2040. And just to finish my presentation, regarding the climate goals, we see in the results that only few of the countries under investigation can comply with the European goals for the low carbon or carbon neutral energy sources in electricity production. So it means that in 2030 and 40, only France, Slovakia, Slovenia, and Ukraine could supply electricity more than 90% based on carbon neutral energy sources. The other countries with the current power plant portfolio cannot reach this 90% low carbon share of electricity generation. So what are the conclusions? So we believe that some kind of redesign is necessary in the energy strategies. So new considerations, new calculations, and new power plant portfolios will be necessary to meet the goals, the energy security and climate goals of the European Union. And I have to mention that the Russian-Ukraine war just worsened the situation. So the sources available right now are much more limited because of the limited availability of natural gas. So this stresses even more the importance of a new energy strategy of Europe. And my last thought is that a new nuclear industry will be necessary in Europe. So I think we are in very big trouble because Europe lost the ability to construct new nuclear power plants. So except France, there are no European companies who can really supply new nuclear power plants. And this nuclear industry, the European nuclear industry, would be very much necessary to comply with the current situation, and revitalization of the European nuclear industry will be clearly needed. Thank you very much for your attention, and I am available for answers or questions if there will be any.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you very much for the very interesting overview of the assessment which has been conducted and which kind of shows the potential issues which several member states are going to be confronted by. But I had just one quick follow-up question to see whether you could give us maybe a bit of a short summary as to why, in the case of Hungary and the PACS 2 project, you decided to go with Russian technology. Is that, if you could highlight some of the key reasons behind that decision?
Okay, the PACS 2 project is about the construction of two new VVR 1200 reactors in PACS, which is an existing nuclear power plant site in the middle of the country. In PACS, we have already 4 VVR reactors in operation. They were commissioned in the 80s. These are VVR 440 reactors. Hungary started negotiations with Russia in 2014 when an intergovernmental agreement was concluded, and based on a financial intergovernmental agreement and a technical intergovernmental agreement, we developed implementation agreements to construct the 2 new VVR 1200 reactors. The reason was, first of all, Russia provided or provides financing for the construction of the 2 new units. We have a lot of experience with the VVR technology because we have the existing nuclear power plant based on VVR technology. And the VVR 1200 reactors are generation 3+ reactors in the size of 1200 megawatts each. So these reactors or these units can be fit into the Hungarian electricity grid. And because of the fact that these are generation 3+ reactors, they can comply with the... When this was decided, there was no war in Ukraine. And you are totally right that the current situation is very complicated. However, the government is committed to go on with the project, and preparations for the first concrete are going on.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for that overview. I hope you can stay connected, because there will be a couple of questions afterwards.
Yeah, I will stay.
Perfect.
Yeah, I will stay.
And I'll now hand over to our next speaker, Juha POIKOLA. He's a manager of public relations at TVO and is based in Finland. Juha?
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here. So I think there's no need to remind me about the clock, because the Finnish people, we don't speak much. But still, that's why I have slides with me. Well, we have one topic in Finland. Next slides, please. So it's, of course, the energy and especially the energy price. Sorry about the small numbers. These are just energy price, electricity prices from last week. So a week ago, we were in a situation where Olkiluoto 3 was running with full power, first time for the beginning of October. And then we had, thank you. And then we had also quite good wind conditions, so the price went minor, below zero. So the price was really, it's a huge impact. Just putting one power plant into the grid with full power. And a week after that, yesterday, we announced to the market, of course earlier that we will not be online. We did the test and went to zero production, so the price went 250 euros per megawatt level. So on average, the price went about 10 times higher. So this is a good example how sensitive the situation and what's the volatility in the market. That and the role of nuclear power is crucial. Because imports are less and less available, so domestic production is really important. Next slide, please. So that's the future months and future weeks looking like in our this Olkiluoto 3 project. So we have been trying to educate the media and people that this is a test production. It means that we are online and offline. But right away, for example, today the media was calling to me that why are you not producing electricity? Well, it's a test production. It's part of the test that we are up and down. That's what but according to this current timetable on December, we will move into regular production. So very good timing, especially now when the domestic production is much more important than earlier. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yes, and this is the history of the project. These fitness stairs that we have been climbing for 20 years. So now we are in a good shape. So it started from the parliament decision in 2002, and now finally we are moving into regular production in December. So very nice year to be in a nuclear business this year in Finland. Next slide, please. And that's how it looks like. Most of you have been here, I think, I've seen the picture anyway. So we produce on average about 30% of the Finnish electricity. But this time of the year we produced about 35%, so even more. Because the winter time, of course, is the high season for electricity. Next, please. And then some milestones, just to remind you that the fuel loading happened already 1 year ago, more than 1 year ago. That was the picture when the first fuel element was put in to the pressure vessel. Good picture. And next one. And after that, December was the first criticality. There's no picture of that, but then in March was the first connection to grid. First kilowatt hour was produced. So we've been online from March this year, producing already significant amount of production, but not regular production. And we already talked about the acceptance in Belgium, and we have the best figures in the history. And as you can see, the last year, this is 22 after the Russian attack, so it had a huge impact. So the trend is very clear from 1982, but the last year was a historically big step towards nuclear acceptance. So 11% in Finland are don't like nuclear power. We'll see what the figure will be when we do the next survey this autumn, later this year. About the industry situation, so I call it a nuclear dilemma. So as I mentioned, the acceptability is the best ever. The politicians are expecting more nuclear power. But the problem is that we have this first-of-a-kind problem. Nuclear power is very slow and expensive, as we all know. And then on the other hand, the SMRs are not available yet. So when we meet politicians, they ask, how can we help with the energy crisis in the future? So our answer is that we will help, but it's in the 2030s. So you can see a bit disappointment faces after this reply. So we are too slow, and we need to speed up. We need to be able to deliver more quickly nuclear power. And crucial part of that is the so-called harmonization work, which is ongoing. It's the critical. I mentioned the word first of a kind, so it's not possible in the future anymore. This regulation, which is different in every country, which it's not possible if we want to move on SMRs. We know also I think all of us knows that. But how to proceed with that? That's a picture I made just to remind that we need to work on national level. We need to work on, at least we work with the Nordic level, and then EU level and also internationally by IAEA. But all these things are going on, at least in our case. So we've been doing 4 years this harmonization work within Finland called KELPO project, very successful one. So we have 2 different companies. We now operate in with similar processes. Well, with this way we get more suppliers. We can use more standard industrial components. So we are getting to be closer to a normal customer within the industry, not a nuclear specific requirements are needed if we talk about lower safety classes. So this kind of work in Nordic level, we are continuing the work, and then the EU SMR partnership program is clearly, it's a very important project to continue with that. And then IAEA has initiated the important so-called NESI project. So the kick-off was in June. And the regulators were very committed to work on the harmonization, and also the companies. So we need to support this work on all levels. So that's the area of improvement within this industry. Just the last slide is about Onkalo and possible operations, but that's another story. But to remind that Olkiluoto 3 is the highlight of that year. This year is Olkiluoto 3's year, and in the future we have very interesting stories to tell about progress in Onkalo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juha. And indeed, I mean, Finland is a great example for many reasons. I mean, first of all, of course, it is moving ahead with its deep geological repository, and the hope is that it'll be operational in just a few years' time. Public support is at an all-time high in Finland, and perhaps in part due to the fact that you have this solution, or this long-term solution for the waste, and the way the public see this is no longer a problem. But then the fact that as well it is a country where its Green Party is now fully backing nuclear to the point where it has publicly declared its support for nuclear in its manifesto. That shows really such a radical change and how certain parties are at a certain point willing to move away from previous ideologies. But you also highlighted some of the challenges that the industry faced as well. I mean, you're looking to see how you can tackle the supply chain challenges through the KELPO project. But it is well, we can't ignore the fact that some of the new projects have significantly overrun in terms of time and cost, and that is something that the industry does need to deal with. And there, the Commission is right. It's not just the fault of policymakers. I think everybody has to play their part to find solutions to the challenges today, and that involves industry as well. So thank you very much for that. I think we have time for a few questions, Claude. So I don't know if we can bring our two other speakers onto the screen. Okay, so we go to our next speaker then. She wants to know about the Fennovoima situation.
My French is very good. I noticed the word Fennovoima. So, so the deal is terminated, and there used to be about almost 400 people working in the company, and now there's only 10, maybe 10 people left. So it's now it's the arbitration. Arbitration is the main focus of the company, but it's not. We don't have anything to do with it. Just what I read from the paper. So, but these people I think they've been finding. Most of them have been finding quite quickly works within the industry, but some of them has left the industry. But anyway, a very sad story, of course. If you think of the nuclear industry, that they used quite a lot of money, and the site is there, and now it's cancelled.
So we turn next to the final speaker on this panel. We have Antoine MENAGER, and he is the Public Debate Director at EDF. So, Antoine, the floor is yours. Voilà.
Okay, excuse me. I'm sorry, my presentation is in French. I'm sorry, I could answer maybe in English after. I put back my support. Thank you for the invitation. Vraiment, cette conférence tombe
Well, thank you very much for this invitation. I think that this conference comes at the right time in France because we will open a large public debate in France. This is precisely my job. Before major political decisions are made to launch a new nuclear project, the President of the Republic of France has made an energy speech. He didn't talk about nuclear power only. He talked about reaching carbon-free, carbon neutrality by 2050. That is the first thing. But in his speech, he also talked about the new nuclear new build ambitions. And this is where he asked EDF to launch the project to build 3 pairs of EPR2, and congratulations to my colleagues from TVO for the power of TVO3, and we've been asked to prepare additional studies for additional EPR. So this is the political will which was expressed by the President of France. But at the moment, the law and programs are regularly reviewed. The next revision will take place at the French Parliament in the summer of 2023. This is why a large consultation process will start under the auspices of the government. It will focus on energy, and regarding EDF and its offer for new reactors, I am organizing a public debate with all the EDF teams. Now, this is precisely the right moment because this public debate will start in 2 weeks' time in France. Now, EDF's vision is quite close to everything I heard from the various speakers. Our ambition is to eliminate CO2 emissions. Our ambition is to reach more energy efficiency and reducing our end consumption, but also decarbonize uses, and this goes through a massive use of electricity, provided it is carbon-free. We think that nuclear power already has a role to play there, but there is more to be done. As I said, at the highest level, the political world has confirmed this support, and the idea is to maintain the fleet as long as possible, and that is provided security is guaranteed. But at some point, we will have to increase capacities. We will have to prepare the revival. And this is precisely what the objective of our discussions is. We looked at the carbon emissions of the existing fleet, and we reached a figure of 4 grams per CO2 per kilowatt hour. And this is for the existing French fleet. If you look at the uranium enrichment sector and other sectors, they all benefit from this low carbon energy. So the figure is quite low when the assessment for the world, or the figures for the world, are in fact 6 to 12. So we are among the lowest emitters of CO2. Now, this scenario was proposed by RTE, which is the transport manager, electricity transport network manager. And there are several scenarios from 100% renewables to scenarios with a large share for nuclear power. So we will actually compare these various scenarios. And the idea of EDF is to have a balanced mix between renewables and nuclear power. And this is very much at the heart of our proposal. This EPR2 program is an industrial program, and that's a key word. This is an industrial program for new reactors in France. One of the major differences with the difficult experience we've had with Flamanville 3 is that we don't want to work in isolation. In contrast, we'd like to have a proper visibility on the nuclear sector and be able to develop the ambition. So developing programs, then producing series and expanding on the basis of these serial productions. This is what you can see with Unit 1 and Unit 2 being constructed right now. The challenge to do all this will really be to have the right skills. This industrial program with 3 pairs of reactors will mobilize 30,000 jobs in France during the construction phase of the program, of the project. In France, 220,000 jobs can be found in the nuclear sector. We will have huge needs. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you today, by the way, but I am working with the engineering schools in France today. So it's very important to attract talents in France, in Europe, to the sector. So we want to attract talents and the best ones for our industry because clearly the ambition is colossal. I mentioned Flamanville, and of course we draw the lessons of Flamanville, and the objective of this EPR2 program is precisely that, to draw the lessons of past experience. The question is, how will this be financed? And this, of course, will be at the heart of our discussions with the French state, because EDF cannot, on its own, finance the renewal of the renovation of the French fleet. It's an overnight cost, a public cost, which has been audited by the government, and there were public audit reports on this. So at the moment, we start discussing with the public. This will be shared completely openly so that the citizens could have full access to the information. So it's a project for EDF, but it's also a project for the whole industrial sector and nuclear sector. You have GIFEN on the screen, which is the group of all nuclear industries in France. And this is where the lessons were drawn from Flamanville to mobilize the sector through an industrial program, through an investment in skills and plans. And this is what was missing for the new nuclear sector. As regards the reactor itself, I will not go into too much details. What we want to do is standardize, and we are looking at technical improvements, but they are limited, to try and draw, learnings from the past. And we are, as I said, producing in series, using these pairs of reactors. This was done through engineering, using computer-assisted design, or all computer tools, and we keep all the assets of EPRs. In the nuclear sector, the first asset, the vital condition, is safety that needs to be guaranteed, and the safety level of an EPR is among the highest in the world. This is, of course, something that we will keep in these EPR 2, and we will maintain the highest level of safety. This is a fundamental prerequisite. So without going any further, these were the technical characteristics, but beyond technical characteristics, what really matters is the way we will proceed. That's the difference between EPR 1 and EPR 2. And then, of course, this project in France is part and parcel of a concrete project. So we have a first pair of reactors in Normandy and in Penly. And the objective of this public debate is to debate with the citizens. In order to select our sites in France, we've chosen at this point to construct on existing sites, because we had reactors operational on these sites already. But we also want to discuss with the citizens and with the territories, with the local and regional authorities. And Normandy was indeed a very attractive region from that point of view. So there was at the same time a technical feasibility, but also a clear willingness from the political world to attract us to Normandy. So the first project of this program will start with Penly.
So here are a few views of the site before and after. It's always easier with a picture. Of course, we'll have to do all of this. You can see the planning data. So the commissioning of this first EPR would be around 2035, 37, with a construction schedule which is realistic for the first one, taking into account the lessons learned in Flamanville. Maybe we'll have some acceleration in what comes after in the program, and some preparatory works that were already planned to host new reactors. And before that, and that's the public debate phase, and I will conclude with that. So first, we need to discuss with the public before triggering the regulatory authorization. So this public debate is important because through this presentation, and you can do that with your phone. The public debate is organized by an independent body, the National Public Debate Agency. So EDF is just supporting this project as the project manager, so I will not comment it. There will be 10 steps, and you can follow this online or take part in face-to-face meetings, but you will find this on the various websites. So 2 weeks before this starts, I would like to raise your awareness and to push you to take part, because with EDF we want to be educational, because when it comes to electricity and nuclear, there's a lot of education activities to do. And for our project, we need to think about urban development also, and this should be discussed and enriched by the public debate. So we're not naive. We know that there will be very strong opinions expressed there, and this is why we need everyone in this debate to support this industry, and this is how we see it. So thank you very much. Everything that I've said, very, very briefly, is presented to the public debate in a very comprehensive manner through the sponsors document. It's a 250-page document describing in detail why we want this project, what is this industrial program, what is this EPR2 technology, everything that I've said very briefly. So, and there's a synthesis of about 10 pages on the right. So I really invite you to take part because the EDF authorization request phase, this is something that we want to do on EDF part, and for the and then the Parliament representatives will have to debate this in 2023. Thank you for your attention.
Oui, merci beaucoup, Antoine. Effectivement.
Thank you very much, Antoine. Yes, indeed, it is important to try to keep the existing power plants, nuclear power plants as much as possible, but at some point you need new reactors, and the decisions have to be made now. So the fact that there is some political will now to go forward these new projects is already a good step forward. And the fact that you are trying to draw lessons from the other projects in the UK and Finland to try to improve or speed up deconstruction and reduce costs, and the fact that you need some a labor force, 30,000 jobs. This is quite a large number. And yes, it would be very interesting to see how this public debate is going to take place. And especially, I would like to know your conclusions and to get the feedback from the French people. So thank you very much. I hope that you can stay with us a bit longer.
A few questions, Claude. So, who would like to go first? Yes, we have somebody over here who would like... I think they're just bringing the mic over to you.
Hi, my name is Oliver Edelman. I'm a journalist at Platts in London. I want to firstly ask, I think, Monsieur Marenne, what stage kind of the legal challenge regarding to the Belgian government the continuation of the activities after 2025, and what stage that's reached and what exactly it involves and what time frame. Then I also had a question for the Polish gentleman, if you could just say anything regarding the funding of the Polish program, so the CFD or RAB model or government funding, just how will that be funded? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe if I take a couple of more questions, so we group them all together. Who else would like to raise? Come on over here.
Yes, hi again, Henri from Défense du Nucléaire en Belgique. I had a question for the gentleman from EDF from France. First, thank you for this very nice presentation, which was, I think, give us a show on how the nuclear in the future will carry on developing in Europe and especially in France. But I had more of a difficult, tricky question, let's say. From what I understand, in France, there is a law that prevents the capacity of nuclear to go beyond 63.5 gigawatts of installed capacity, if I'm not mistaken, which is one of the reasons why Fessenheim had to close, because it was a condition to be able to open Flamanville. And the question that I had is, from my understanding, France is the only country in the world which is not doing upratings and energy efficiency projects in their power plants to increase the electrical capacity of each power plant whilst keeping the same thermal capacity. And from my understanding, if you make the numbers on the total French fleet, you could gain, let's say, nearly overnight. These are projects, obviously, they're not that easy, but in a few years, you could increase the capacity between 8 and 12 gigawatts of extra capacity. Why is EDF not pleading this more in the French government in order to push politicians to repeal that law or at least amend it so that this would be allowed? Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll take just one more, maybe here, the gentleman just here.
I will stand up because my colleague from Maison du Peuple d'Europe reminded me that I didn't stand up and I gave a bad habit to the entire floor. So my name is Joseph Becker, and the question goes to Mr. POIKOLA. Since it's the topic at issue, you have told us that Finland has the greatest acceptance among its citizens for the nuclear project. So how did you communicate first? Second, what about the waste management? How did you tackle that situation with your population? And that's about what Claude called not acceptance but societal appropriation.
Thank you. And Claude also has a question, I believe.
Three Three short questions to Antoine about EDF. So if I have understood well, the cost planned for the EPR would be around 50 or 55 billion outside of funding. So what does that mean? So you don't include the credit fees and the interest on loans? Well, that would change the situation a bit. But maybe we should clarify this issue and say things directly to the French people, because when the cost will explode and when we have to pay for the risk, and we know that they are in construction, of course, that usually turns the opinion against the nuclear plant, especially in Flamanville. In Flamanville, we are criticized because it's going to be from 13 to 20 billion because of the cost of risk. But it's just 3 years of ENR taxes. So couldn't we bring some relativity to the cost of Flamanville? Because when it's going to start, it's like the lottery, it's going to be €0. The kilowatt per hour will be 0. That's incredible. So let's go for it. We need to go faster on this. And third question on the public debate. For the public debate, I have a big doubt. First, the law in 2023. Well, that's very late. That's almost a year. So we know that nuclear is a long time, but we need to make faster decisions. And the public debate in France, I think that the first question of this debate, CNDP has to get rid of it. Yes or no to nuclear energy, that's no longer the question. Again, we should not relaunch this debate, yes or no to nuclear energy, for or against. Yeah, people might say this is democratic. We invited the people who are against it. We don't care. We know they are against it. So we don't need to get their opinion again, because it's been 20 years that they've been against nuclear energy. So we need to stop this. And I would like to say to Juha that for Kyoto, the construction started in 2002. And that's when we started les entretiens européens. Thank you very much, Claude. Well, there are many questions for Antoine, so I suggest that we start with you, Antoine. So the first question is about the law limiting the maximum capacity for nuclear industry. So will EDF try to do something about this? And then Claude's 3 questions. There's mention of outside funding for the EPR. So good. And the third thing about the public debate, is it really necessary to have some public debate? Antoine. No, for the law, of course, EDF cannot do anything. It is the parliament representatives here who make the law. And today, the energy policy decided by the French president now would not work, because we're going to shut down 14 reactors. There is the ceiling. So it is essential to have a debate, but that will be at the parliament. And if this is the direction we want for French energy, this is our wish, so that we can make our proposal. So yes, in as such, things need to evolve, and then it doesn't matter of time. When will the capability installed? Well, we can go into those details later on. So that brings me, because there were many questions from Claude. They were not always questions, by the way. But as I said before, a public debate is the National Public Debate Commission who is going to organize that. So, of course, we work with the Commission for the details, but, we can say things. But at the end of the day, this is the Commission making decisions, and then everybody can think what they want about this. But this is their sovereign right, and EDF wants to stay open, not having the attitude that our opponents might have. So for the cost, I think I might have mentioned it. I think it's at including financing and operation cost, but it's just, like I said, overnight cost. and that will be one topic of the debate because, you know, for the French, the money issue, how much it costs and so on. This is one argument in the debate. Of course, it will not just be EDF alone because it's about the role of the state also in this. So I think that would be an interesting session, but all sessions will be interesting, and I will use my joker not to answer the question nuclear energy, yes or no, but there are issues in terms of research challenges, in terms of what we do for the projects on the national territory, because, you know, there will be people living with this in their backyard. I've been the director of one of the EDF nuclear power station in Chinon, and we know that around those plants, the inhabitants, they know us, they trust us, provided that we do a professional job. So this is why in the new reactor, we're going to place them on the existing sites. But first, we have to discuss with the local population who will have to live with our projects. There was a question about the increase of power of those reactors. So we do a lot about the existing fleet. We talk about the increase of the heat capacity, but for years, you know, we've been trying to increase the yield of our facilities because we stopped because we want to increase the safety level because of Fukushima, as you said, and so on. But safety first, so that people can trust us. But we've done many things that have really improved things over time, the yield of our facilities. So I'm not sure I answered all questions, but I was very happy to get your invitation and to say that in 2 weeks in France, but you know, any European citizen in a way on an internet platform can see what will be discussed in France. So I invite all those who want to take part in the public debate to take the floor, and that will be important to support our industry. Thank you, Antoine.
Our online speakers, Mr. KUBACKI, are you still connected?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. So there was a question to you. How does Poland plan to fund its nuclear project?
Actually, it is a very good question because financing is the key challenge for nuclear new build projects. So everybody which are undertaking the nuclear investment has to be fully aware of the complexity and the cost of the nuclear energy deployment. In our case, we put the financing in the framework of our dialogue with the vendors, with the potential technology suppliers. So at this stage, it's very difficult for me to elaborate details because it is still, you know, on the table. But as I said in my presentation, you know, each potential vendor has to bring within his offer the package on financing, you know. So definitely, you know, it will be playing important role. And I would also add that we are fully aware that the Treasury state has to be engaged in this financial engineering because we know, you know, that the state can, to large extent, lower the risk and lower the capital cost. So definitely there will be part of the financing brought by investors. And secondly, you know, there will be huge and large engagement of state in the financial engineering. So at that time, you know, I can only just mentioning, you know, such a general information, but we shortly know upon picking up, you know, the selected partner, you know, what kind of the financial engineering will have in Poland.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I turn now to Juha. Questions addressed to you. So in relation to the fact that Finland has high public acceptance of nuclear, how are you communicating in order to kind of achieve this, and how are you tackling the waste management issue?
Okay, just to put it shortly, so of course the basis of everything is a very good experience, the safe and reliable operations that we have in Finland, and together with that we are very open with the communication, and we have this dialogue, constant dialogue with the public. Like today, yesterday we were producing and today not, so the media was calling me, and we immediately explained that so we are there for these questions, and also now we reply into these comments in social media, so we try to react. But lately, if you look at these last five years, the main influencers have been these climate researchers and social media influencers, that they have the huge impact on the younger generation's opinions. So we done the job earlier, and we done the basis for this, but now it's these other active supporters of nuclear power who are taking the bigger role, as Jessica mentioned, the Green Party members, for example, are promoting nuclear, so which is of course very effective. And regarding the waste of course, also the basis is on R&D work. So we have had about 40 years of R&D work on the basis before we had this solution, and so we have the safety case is very solid. That's the basis that you can start this dialogue, and it was a very important statement that our regulator made when it gave us the construction license. So the regulator said that it can be done safely. So that sentence is enough if the regulator is really highly evaluated. So that's basically the end of discussion, that is it safe or not in Finland. But yeah, the Onkola site is located in Olkiluoto, which of course the acceptance is really high. From every family, there's somebody they know working in the bus at the site, so they know that this is nothing to be scared of, and they also accept the waste handling and the solutions, and they trust us.
Thank you very much, Juha. And finally to Henri, which was actually the first question that was raised. So, Belgium, what stage are you at in the legal challenge?
So I must say the government and the political world is evaluating in Belgium. We see, as I said, the slide I presented was 1 year ago, and in fact, a couple of months after that, the government was not so sure anymore that they could really phase out all nuclear plants. So they decided to keep the last two ones open. Nowadays, they have made a budget evaluation, and in the negotiation, they concluded, okay, maybe 2 is not the end figure. So we see that thanks to public debate, to NGOs like ours, also in some political rings, this debate and the idea of nuclear coming back is evaluating, and I think now with our action, we also ask the question of legality of what they are doing, and I think they have a lot of questions, and they are not so sure anymore, and we are there to keep on pushing, and we will get in. Our objective is to save all our plants. Maybe the first one, which is now closed until since 23 of September, it will be maybe difficult to save it because they are already cutting some timbers inside the reactor. They are preparing the chemical decontamination. So maybe for it will be difficult, but we keep fighting, and we will try to save what can be saved. And I must say that we have good hope.
Thank you very much, Henri. And with that, I'd like to thank all our speakers very much for the very interesting interventions. I think generally what we're seeing is that gradually things are now starting to change. They are looking more positive towards nuclear. There is more support for nuclear. The nuclear industry is looking to learn and implement certain lessons from existing projects, which I think is really great. We're starting to see more and more political support, which again is important. And as I said, we're getting more and more public support. So maybe by having more conversations and bringing everybody around the table, we can really start to accelerate this positive movement and really get us back on track. So thank you.
Thank you.